I'm excited because today I'm gonna do things a little differently. Let me know how you like it down in the comments. Welcome back to Every Disney Movie Ever. My name is Jess and I'm watching Every Disney Movie Ever. Today I'm going to talk about Cadet Kelly. Cadet Kelly is a 2002 Disney Channel original movie. It's directed by Larry Shaw, cinematography by Frank Byers, editing by Anita Brandt Burgoyne, music by David Gattay, and it's written by Gail Parent and Michael Walsh. The film stars Hilary Duff, who plays Kelly, Christy Carlson Romano, who plays Captain Jennifer Stone, Gary Cole, who plays Sir or Joe, her stepdad, Andrea Lewis, who plays Carla, and Linda Kash, who plays Samantha or her mom. They shot the film in Canada. They filmed at Robert Land Academy, St. Andrew's College, Loretto's Catholic Secondary School, and at Canadian Forces Fort York Armory. And then they had Lieutenant William T. Bates on as like a consultant, and he was making sure that like they were doing everything accurate to a military school, and he would also drill the actors to test them and make sure they knew what they were doing and were doing it accurately. If the edit is working the way I'm envisioning it, you just saw a big old screen that said directing or direction or some form of that. I am taking notes about each of the individual things that I technically rate, and I'm going to deliver them that way, and we're going to see how it goes. It's going to be a work in progress. I didn't test this beforehand. You are my test. So if we don't like this, let me know down below. If we do like this, that's great, because I'm kind of excited to be doing more in depth on this side than just letting you know what people are best known for. So let's go. I feel like I'm not going to have a lot of notes when it comes to directing unless I think something is entirely the director's fault, because if I have a lot of notes for all the other things that are good, we owe that a huge part of that to the director, because as a lot of you know, the director is like the captain of a ship that is the film, and it's their job to have a vision for the film and to get every other department head and every single person on the set to believe in that vision and to cohesively make that vision. So if I think the writing and editing and acting and all of that is succeeding, that is a huge part due to the people that did those things, but also to the director getting them to see their vision and bring them in to work collaboratively to deliver that vision so well. So if I only have a couple notes or have almost no notes about the directing specifically, please know that that doesn't mean I think the director was bad or I didn't have a lot of nice things to say about the director. It's purely that's probably more good than not. Because if I don't have a lot to say about the director, that probably means they did a really good job. Or they did their job, and I have more to say about each individual factor because they all had a vision moment. Okay? So, with that being said, the reveal of Captain Stone is so good, and I have this underneath the cinematography notes as well, but I don't have, the fact that we don't meet Captain Stone until a pretty good chunk into the movie, and the reveal starts with her feet and her stomping down the aisle and just the uniformed turn of her feet. It's just such a great character reveal. It's so well done, and I know that alone, it could have been in the script that way, but I just have a super big feeling it was the cinematographer and the director that worked hand in hand to make that choice. Larry Shaw and Frank Byers probably were this is a great way to reveal Captain Stone, and I'm so glad they did it that way because it was really good. And then there is a scene later where Kelly keeps talking and Captain Stone could be replying but is staying silent and just responding with facial features. They, a huge thing in film, it's a visual medium first and foremost, so I know in film school they tell you the more you can show and not tell, the better. So if you can show something, you show it. If you absolutely can't show something, you can tell it. But the more you can show, the better. So the fact that they realized that Captain Stone didn't need to be responding with words and just reactions and silence was great, and I love that. I love when people choose to do less dialogue in a scenario because it's just show it to us. It's so good to show it to us. feel like cinematography for these television releases, especially like upper end DCOMs, are just getting more and more advanced, which is super exciting, and they're getting more creative. There's a lot more movement because movement has become easier, so it's cheaper to do, so TV releases can do it. And I love that. The more movement, the better, because it really immerses you in the story. There's definitely time and place for a stagnant shot, but in this, it's so like, the movement is so good, and it really was cohesive and helped tell the story. No movement felt out of place. And then the lighting had, like, you know, a lot of it wasn't like extraordinary lighting. It was very like appropriate for whatever scene was happening. Very natural lighting. They didn't do anything super experimental, except in the scene where Kelly realizes that she might think drill is really cool and she might want to go out for the drill team. You know, they're practicing and she's like shining stuff in the gym, watching them do it. And it turns into like slow motion, and all of a sudden like they're flipping the guns and there's a big bright light behind them. Like, it was really well done, really well shot. And I really love that scene. And then the scene at the first regionals when Kelly isn't on the drill team yet, but it's their first like qualifying round. The movement and cinematography in that scene was also really, really good, because it's all like, it really, really helped you understand why Kelly was all of a sudden like falling in love with drill. How she calls it, like, it was Swan Lake. It was like a ballet instead of just this stiff robot thing. Like, it takes a lot of dedication and practice and a lot of coordination, and it is an art in and of itself, even though it seems a lot more stiff and not as artsy as something could be. And so like, to facilitate or help get the message across that Kelly is slowly being like, oh my god, I think I might really want to be on the drill team, the camera work and constantly referring to Kelly, and just like, it's just, they did a really good job sensationalizing the drill routine. And I think the camera work in that scene and the lighting was really, really well done. I don't have a lot of editing notes, and that is normally a good thing. When the best edit is an edit you don't notice, except under certain circumstances. So normally, if you don't notice the edit, that's awesome. That means the editor did a great job telling the story. Nothing was jarring, nothing whatever. Especially if the movie like felt really like well paced, whatever. If you got bored, that's an editor problem more often than not. So I don't have a lot of notes about the edit, which is great, but I do have a couple things. I feel like there's a really good flow at the beginning. It felt a little rushed right at the beginning, but I understand the rush at the beginning because there's so much meat to this story that is actually really good. So I understand why we need to get there fast. So I feel like that was less of an edit problem and more of a little bit of a writing problem, or they just didn't want to milk the beginning, which I can also totally respect. And they do a good job of the introduction and everything. I'm going to circle back to the scene in the gym where Kelly falls in love with drill in combination with that regional scene. The edit during those like conjoined scenes is really well done. It really worked in tandem with that cinematography, and I think it stands out because, again, they have a lot of movement, which is really great, and the editor did a great job, Anita Bramper going, not surprising, of like choosing what shots when to facilitate the story and everything like that. But what was even greater is now they have all these like a little bit more artsy shots, because in those scenes they got a little bit more creative with the camera work, so the editor was able to get a little bit more creative in the edit. And so those scenes are kind of in tandem. I think they happen one right after the other, so they're really well edited. I feel like they did a good job referring back, because there's no dialogue. I think at the very beginning when Kelly says like, oh, I understand, it's like a Swan Lake, and then there's no dialogue. It's just Kelly witnessing these routines. I think there's like some like port arms, you know, like what he says and stuff like that, but there's no like Kelly being like, oh my god, I love drill, I think it's amazing, I want to try out for the team. Like, there's no voiceover of that. It's just shots of them performing and Kelly witnessing, and through the edit we understand that Kelly is like falling for it and wants to try out for drill. And if you can get that message across in an edit, very well done. And then the routine at the end of the film between Captain Stone and Kelly is obviously so iconic. We'll get to the iconicness of this film later, but the edit itself is very fun. It goes really well with the song, which we will also get to, but the edit itself is very fun. It's very like repetitive. It's very quick. It does a good job of showing both Kelly and Captain Stone like opening up and having fun doing their routine, and it's like Also, at the same time, this moment where we finally get to see, like, Captain Stone and Kelly, like, kind of becoming friends and enjoying each other's company. Like, they worked hard on this routine together, even though they, like, kind of hate, like, not kind of, they hated each other at the beginning, but now, like, they've worked together on something and they can't help but be like, you know what, like, we have a mutual respect for each other now. Like, Kelly learned a lot, and Captain Stone maybe doesn't have to be such a brat. So, like, it's just, like, a really, the edit, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Expresses a lot, tells us a lot. I don't know. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it did a really good job. And so those are the two biggest moments that stand out edit-wise. I cannot talk about the music of this film without talking about One Girl Revolution, which I assume is the name of the song. I actually don't know what the name of the song is. I should probably look it up. I don't even know if I could find this song. But the song that's at the beginning and then is their routine song, I assume is called One Girl Revolution because I'm a one girl revolution. I'm a one girl revolution. The song is so, like, for the people who know this movie and grew up with Cadet Kelly, they know that this song is a banger and is iconic. Like, it's just iconic. The fact that it's right at the beginning and is introducing, like, the flow and feel of the movie, and Kelly being so free-spirited and with the ribbons and whatever else, to, like, it becomes the song that she does the drill routine to. Like, she's grown as a person, like, and the song is just an absolute banger. Period. So, like, we have to pay tribute to the iconic song that is the One Girl Revolution song. But then the actual score we have to talk about, because David Cadet, wow. The music after she's gotten court-martialed and just met with Joe in his office and then is being sent, he's like, go home, I'll meet you there. When she's walking and she tries to, like, call her dad on the phone to be like, and pretends to be happy, even though she's obviously really sad and wants to confide in her dad, but he didn't answer. So stunning. The music in that scene, I was like, oh, okay, David Cadet. I was getting very emotional. I thought it really, like, went in tandem with the feeling, but not overly so. It didn't feel like it was telling, like, you don't want the music to tell you how to feel. You want the music to assist in that feeling you're already feeling and, like, maybe push you a little bit farther, you know, like, give you that little extra, like, oh, so heartbreaking here in this moment, isn't it? Not, you should be sad now. You don't want music to do that to you, because if music says you should be sad now, you're like, well, now I don't feel sad because you're a little bit bombarding me. But if you're sad and the music is, like, just perfectly captures how you're feeling, good job, David Cadet. And then when Kelly is falling for the drill team, I obviously, because I keep referring to that scene, I think every department head really came together. That was a very great and well executed scene. The music, the edit, and the shots, camera work in that scene all came together and really did this beautiful, like, blossoming love for Kelly. So I think the music in that scene was also so stunning. And then so many of the, like, actual, like, songs with words go off in this movie. Like, they're all really good. Kelly's optimism in this movie reeks of someone who is shoving down their negative feelings to try and always be the positive person, and her constant to-do listing, like, shows that she's trying to, like, fix everybody, and she says, I have to do everything. That's a lot of responsibility to take on as a child. And I think it's interesting because she's, like, this free-spirited, like, clumsy girl, but she has all these, like, control things, like, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this. So then when she's put in a military scenario, you'd almost think she would do well because she's got such a thing of control, but actually she doesn't, because the only thing she could control was, like, her expression, and now she can't do that. So it's forcing her to look at all these other things that she's wanting to control, but she can't. So it's very interesting to see that, and I think the writers did a really good job. First and foremost, though, there are so many iconic lines from this movie. I think everyone I talk to loves Cadet Kelly, and it is, like, a wide range of ages. Like, I have a coworker who's 4 years older than me that loves Cadet Kelly, and then I got people younger than me that love Cadet Kelly, and then obviously people my age that love Cadet Kelly. I don't think I've heard of anyone that doesn't like Cadet Kelly that grew up with Cadet Kelly, to be perfectly honest. It is an iconic movie, but there's so many parts of, like, so many iconic lines, like, did you break a nail? I don't care! Or the, like that thing, or the I'm afraid of heights, I'm even hoping to not get too tall, or there's just so many iconic lines. And then there's really funny lines, like, this wasn't a retreat, it was an advance to the rear. Like, that went over my head as a kid, but is so funny as an adult. And there's just, like, there's so many iconic lines, but then in tandem with that, this movie is genuinely funny, like with the, it's not a retreat, it's an advance to the rear, teaching to the kid. But then it's also, like, so heartbreaking. There's so many moments where you're like, oh, Hilary Duff, you are just, which is the next thing we'll talk about. But writing-wise, this could have been so, like, not genuine and so campy. And so, like, look at this girl go to military school. But they really found, like, this heart of this story of this girl who, like, grows, and this stepdad who grows, and they kind of have to, like, meet in the middle. And it's like, the writers, good job. I can't believe this was Hilary and Christy's first movie for the Disney Channel. Obviously, they have Lizzie McGuire and Even Stevens, respectively, but this was their first film for the Disney Channel, and it is Cadet Kelly. Like, as I've said, it's iconic a bunch at this point, but as much as, obviously, people always think of Hilary and Christy Carlson Romano, Hilary Duff carries this movie. She is the one in every single scene. She is the one this movie is about. I mean, it's called Cadet Kelly, which we knew, and it seems obvious. But I feel like when people look back at this movie, all they think about is Kelly and Captain Stone constantly, like, at each other's throats and then becoming besties and, you know, whatever, doing the dance. For a lot of people, falling in love. Whatever it might be. But when you actually, like, watch it as an adult, you, like, the Captain Stone is in it, but not nearly as much as we're focused on Kelly. Hilary Duff carries this film. This movie is as good as it is because you eat up everything Hilary Duff puts on the table. All the time she gets emotional, all the time she's adorable, all the time she's super excited. Every single moment, Hilary Duff carries this movie. And you would not be able to connect to this movie as well. You would not be able to connect to Kelly as well, or the other characters as well, I don't think, if it weren't for Hilary Duff. I think this is, like, I know Lizzie McGuire is so incredible, and I agree. I love Lizzie McGuire. I love Hilary Duff and a million other things. But this right here, like, honestly, is some of, like, peak Hilary Duff. Like, she carries this movie. As for Christy Carlson Romano, I love it. It's not the biggest step, like, acting branch-wise. Like, I think Kim Possible and Ren, I think is her name in Even Stevens, are very different characters, and I love that for her. But I think Ren and Captain Stone are semi-similar characters, and she just had to, like, become a little bit more, like, stiff and nasty for Captain Stone. But she does a great job doing it. So, like, shout out Christy Carlson Romano for that. And then Gary Cole, I think, just does an absolutely fantastic job of being this, like, stoic military man, but at the same time wears every emotion on his face. So anytime, like, you see him just being so, like, regal and stoic, but, like, Kelly has an interaction with her dad and you can see him longing to have that relationship with Kelly, but he just doesn't know how because he's not an outwardly, like, big, boisterous dude, but he wants to have that closeness and relationship with Kelly, which is, like, so stunning. Like, you want to see that for a stepdad. You want a stepdad to want that with his stepchild, and to, like, see Gary Cole be like this, I'm a big stoic military man, but I'm a big soft underbelly, and I want that with my daughter, like, my new daughter, that I just, like, I love her, but how do I tell her and show her I love her? Because I don't speak the same way her dad does, and, like, he wears it all on his face, and it's so good, so good. That being said, of all the people I said star in this movie, I think Linda Cash is actually the weakest link. To be fair, she's not in it as much as the others, and she's not bad, but I think of the performances in this movie, hers is one of the weaker ones. But again, she's not in it as much, so I can't really super decide on that. Just a couple miscellaneous things. The ADR wasn't great when there was some ADR, except for the voiceover. Voiceover was fine. The sounds when Kelly rolled in the mud down to the dance were nasty. They sounded gross, and which is good, I guess. And then the choreography for all the drill scenes. I think people aren't realizing that, like, the actors had to learn these routines, especially because you see a lot of the actors doing it. Like, you see Christy and Hilary and Sean doing the drill routine. So they had to not only train and learn those things, they had to learn the specific choreography of what they were doing and then do it on camera a bunch of times. So I think a huge shout out to whoever choreographed the drill runs that they did, because they were stunning and really incredible, and the actors did a great job. So my notes are mostly like reactionary things, because obviously my notes about the technical stuff I just gave you. So these are much more like my reactions and opinions of stuff. So like, first and foremost, my grandmother knew Gary Cole. I say knew because my grandma has passed, not Gary Cole. Gary Cole's very much alive. But my grandma knew Gary Cole. He went to the high school my grandma worked at. So that's cool. Keep it in the family. I'm 1 degree away from Gary Cole because he knew my grandma. So that's cool. Otherwise, listen, I feel like they haven't done it in a while, but to be fair, I haven't seen a decom recently. But the late I know I've said this before, but the late 90s and early 2000s really was just like the time for voiceover. Like, from the point of view of the main character, just voiceovering. And that is really fun. I think Kelly did a good job. I loved her growing to-do list. Like, every time she's like, my to-do list, like her new to-do list was, and it was just like kept adding to it. I was a little salty that Kelly was kind of just thrown into military school. I'm salty that, like, her new stepdad or someone else didn't show her around, like, show her to her bunk, tell her what time she had to be up, tell her that she needed to be in uniform and have her bed made. Like, no one told her those things, so immediately set her up for failure, and it wasn't until, like, she failed a couple times in front of Captain Stone that a fellow classmate, Carla, was like, hey, I volunteered to teach her how it goes. Like, she should have just had that anyway. She's never been to this school before. She's never been to a military school. They absolutely should have had someone being like, hey, this is your bunk. This is how it operates. Here's some information. This is where your classes are going to be. Like, she didn't learn how military school works until after she, like, made a bunch of screw-ups. Like, they were set her up for failure immediately. And I was very salty about that. And that might be, like, a very adult thing of me to say. I was very salty about that. I never noticed that as a kid. Didn't notice it at all. It's just like, yep, checks out. But, like, now as an adult, I'm like, excuse me. You're not going to throw my kid into military school and not tell her how it works? Like, what? Like, she was just going to creative arts school. Like, what are you talking about? I did cry in this movie. When Jennifer rips up the blanket, oh, that was heart-wrenching. Truly, and, like, really symbolic, I guess. Of, like, time to stop being a baby, Kelly, I get. But, like, it's so sad. And then immediately followed by her, like, sobbing scene where her mom is like, maybe it was a mistake to come here. And Kelly was like, you never asked me if I wanted to come here. You just sprung this marriage and this school, the move and the school on me, and now a baby. Like, 100%, I'd be livid if I were Kelly and my mom was like, surprise, I'm marrying the dude, like, you kind of know, and also we're moving, and also you're going to military school. I'd be like, nope, no, I'm not doing that, thanks though, that's really nice. Also, very surprising to me that, like, this mom would marry him and then be, like, surprised instead of, like, talking about it. Like, no thank you. But I did cry. I cried kind of a couple times throughout this movie. That made me really teary, but tears didn't really fall at that moment. And then obviously when she was really upset about the court-martialing, I got really teary. And then later, obviously toward the end, when Joe is like, this cadet also has a duty to her father. And they left, like, he chose for her to leave the drill thing, which is so important to him, to go save her dad. What a dad moment. Like, he grew so much. So beautiful. And then I also got kind of emotional at the scene where Kelly says, no, I didn't talk about any routine ideas with Brad because you are my partner and you are my superior. I work with you. Also so good. Why am I getting a little emotional now? Dang. Anyway, so yeah, I cried. And I'm 28 years old, so Cadet Kelly rules. I think what we learned is always somewhat opinionated, because I think it's more like, each person's going to take away something different from a film, so I am never promising to list all the lessons we learned in a movie. But I do think there are a lot of great lessons in this movie, and I'm going to have to read because I wrote a lot down. I think a huge takeaway is that discipline and organization have to go hand in hand with individuality, flair, and creativity. I think you can be, I think the lesson is you can be like so happy and so successful if you dedicate yourself, but also are, like, don't lose yourself in something. And I think Kelly really learns that if she like is disciplined and really dedicates herself to a craft and follows through and finishes the thing, it can be so rewarding. Because, you know, at the beginning, she's like, oh, I'm going to do this for my project, or I'm going to do this for my project. And she just, like, can't find something, can't pinpoint it, won't finish it type situation. And she learns, obviously, at military school that, like, with help, with a group, and also with, like, actually dedicating yourself to doing and practicing the thing, you can accomplish something incredible. And I think that's a huge lesson. And obviously, I feel like Kelly learns, like, life skills and actual education, but I also think she learns to trust and work as a team. Not that she wasn't necessarily trusting people before, but I feel like, you know, with like Carla and Captain Stone and her stepdad, she learns like trust the process a little bit more. And then Joe, I think, also learns. I love when like a bunch of characters learn stuff in a movie, because everyone can grow and learn constantly. So Joe, I think, learns how to be a little bit softer and open up, and how to be a dad truly. And I think he realizes he didn't have to give up his love of the military and being headmaster in that school in order to have like a very nice fatherly side and a softer side. And that those things can go hand in hand. And then I also think that like they obviously like learned from each other how to meet in the middle. And like obviously like it's almost like, this is gonna sound really weird and I do not mean it this way, but it's almost a love story in a way, but like a father-daughter love story. And like where she was like, I tell them about my dad, and my dad, ugh, so good. That's everything I have for Cadet Kelly. That was so long. I'm gonna have to like rein it in. Unless you really loved this, let me know, I guess. My final rating is 7 rifles out of 10. Our total movie count is. Our cry count is. Parent Death Toll is still the same. If you want to keep up with what movie I'm watching when, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. You'll find out what movie I'm watching when. I put up videos every Monday and Friday and sometimes Wednesday. Join Patreon. Lots of fun stuff always going on over there. Buy merch. I haven't worn a t-shirt in a while, so go buy the merch. This is a classic. Until next time, comment, like, subscribe, but I'm not in charge of your life. You are, so you do, and don't be... Oh, you know what? Actually, everybody kind of, like, learns and is well-rounded in this. So, you know, like, have an open mind, I guess. How am I going to make it through a second video if I have to talk that much again? My God, that was so long. Also, Kelly and Jennifer are madly in love. And Jennifer leaving to a different school the next year? No.